So, Kamila, you have been through a lot. You are one of the recent refugees from Kabul who were 8 hours trying to get out at the gates at the airport. Tell us a little bit about how you came to be at that airport. Where were you born? How did you become interested in women's rights?
Um, Thank you, Gayle. I just want to, first of all, very briefly introduce myself. My name is Kamila, and I am born in Jaguri, one of the villages of Ghazni province in Afghanistan. I was born there in 1996, 30th April, but due to the ongoing war, internal war, and also when Taliban took over the country in 90s, and a lot of poverty and drought happening at the same time, our family migrated to Pakistan, and we were claiming refugee there for years. But as a child refugee, as someone living in Pakistan, as an Afghan, there were not much opportunities for Afghans to seek education, to work, and to function as a normal human being in a country. So therefore, um, I continued surviving in Pakistan for years, but I belong to a specific ethnicity group and also religious group. Therefore, our people, specifically, I would mention Hazara people, were targeted based on their ethnicity in Pakistan, discriminated and being killed brutally for years, and we were forcefully displaced from one place to another, from Quetta to other provinces of Pakistan. But people with low income, with low, I would say, poor people would not be able to travel to other provinces, so they kept living there or kept dying. Therefore, when I was 16, I was in 12th grade in school, and then our school was bombed, attacked, and then at that time my family asked me to stop going to school because they were afraid that they would lose me as other parents lose their children, and as my classmates lost their lives in that school, and hundreds of people died and lost their lives in that attack. So therefore, I just realized that this is the moment to take a decision and to move to my own country, Afghanistan, to seek those all opportunities in my own homeland in 2012 when I came back to Afghanistan.
How is it that a 16-year-old girl can travel by herself all the way to Kabul? That took a lot of courage, and I don't know how you did it.
Gaila, this is an interesting, but also would be when we are in our bed, I would say worst situation, we take difficult decisions. And I would say that a 16-year-old girl may seem a child to Western world and to countries like America, like Europe. But for Afghans and for refugees, like Afghan refugees, a 16-year-old girl is a girl who settles a life, who set up their own lives and who start a married life actually. But me, I have faced a lot of discrimination. I have faced a lot of problems in my life from childhood, and that's why when I started to think independently, that I would not live a life that my parents lived. I would not live a life that other girls lived in my hometown because they were not allowed to go to school, or whether they were facing violence in their homes or by society, criticism and everything. The conservative society would not allow girls to get education. So I started talking about my right and my siblings' right in home first, stood against my parents, and this was a turning point in my life when I was, I think, in 8th grade. From that time, I started standing against discrimination indirectly. I should mention that for a 12 or 13-year-old girl, it is not defined what is discrimination. It is not defined what is women's right or what is a human right. They are living in their own world, but for us, because we were killed, because we were beaten, we were discriminated, the opportunities were taken away from us, we needed to fight for it. So this was a point when I started fighting for it, and I convinced my family in a very difficult way that even they were not ready to allow me, but I don't know how I made them convinced, and uh, they actually allowed me to travel to Afghanistan. But let me tell you that I traveled to Afghanistan in a taxi with crossing the border, and then in a bus trip from Kandahar traveling to Kabul. And it was a very difficult time for me, not an easy journey. But I would say that I do not regret my decision, and I'm very happy and proud of that. I took that good decision.
And then when you arrived in Kabul at age 16, how were you able to be admitted to university so that you could do the kind of work that you wanted to do as a professional?
Like all other students or like all other Afghans, for entering to university, you have to give entrance exam. Like I would say in Delhi we say Kanpur. So I tried that. I actually gave entrance exam, and my unfortunate that I failed that exam, and I just could not make it because of all the things happened in that 1 year with me. All the difficult situation that I faced, I was not in a position to study or to prepare myself for exam. I was all time dealing with how to protect myself in a new society, how to deal with the new culture, how to deal with the new people. Though they were my own people, this was my own country, but I never lived in Afghanistan as an adult. I never lived in Afghanistan with their language, with their culture, and everything. So it was very difficult for me to deal out with all these problems, and I got into big depression of years after that travel. But let me tell you that that failure started a new success in my life, and that failure means to start a new journey. And I went to a private university, started my education there.
And then you became a professional working for women's rights, for aid organizations. What was your focus in terms of your work with women?
While I was, now I'm going to mention a few improvements that I witnessed when I came in Afghanistan, but also a few things about the culture. So I was coming from conservative society of Pakistan, and there is not a lot of big difference between Pakistan and Afghanistan in terms of religion and culture. But the people in Pakistan that I was living in that society was more conservative in terms of women's rights, in terms of letting them going to university and getting job. And while I came to Kabul, I witnessed a lot of girls going to jobs, having their own jobs. I witnessed in the university pregnant women sitting on the chair and seeking education, and that was so pleasant to my eyes. That was so a big achievement for Afghanistan. Women who were always behind the doors under burqas were now sitting in classroom with men together and getting education. So that was very pleasant moment for me. And I remember I was always praying that, please God, do not stop this. I want to see more of it. I want to see more women in restaurants, in schools, in universities. So yeah, in that way, I would say a lot of changes were made in Afghanistan, and I just am very, very sad that now we do not have that improvement. But also, sorry if I was disrupted by the notification. The exact question was about
what you focused on in terms of your work with women's rights. You traveled to the rural areas.
That's when I said when I moved to Afghanistan, I faced a lot of problems. I would like to mention a few of them, but I would also warn the audience that there would be few disturbing things that they will listen now is about women and girls in Afghanistan. So when I came back to Afghanistan, I was young, I was 16, I was not familiar with the culture. I was actually a vulnerable person in that society. I faced a lot of situations in Afghanistan that I would say was very, very inhuman to women and girls and to everybody, I would say. So a lot of girls are harassed in Kabul city publicly without any fear. You know, men do not fear to harass women, to bully women, and they feel like women's body is our property when they are in public. So women are being harassed, sexually harassed, and also by words on the streets. That's one thing. But another thing is how women are being like they face misbehaviors in offices, they face misbehaviors in public spaces. So because of these all situations, a lot of women commit suicide. A lot of women get used to use drugs because they don't want to experience, they actually want to forget this experience for a short time. And me, as a 16-year-old girl, I faced this situation with my own eyes. I saw girls who were using drugs. I saw women who were committing suicide in the hostel because of the domestic violence they were facing in their homes, because they were left behind from their family members just because they chose to work and they chose to get education in living in hostel. So, you know, because of all this happening in Afghanistan, and I also witnessed, this is really, really a moment that I can never forget in my life. I was living in hostel, and in that hostel, I experienced, I saw a woman being raped. You know, a person just came in and attacked a woman and raped and just went in the air. I don't know. No one asked the person that what happened. But I remember the time when the family member of that girl came to hostel, and the responsible person in hostel actually mentioned that the girl is responsible for this, because why the other one was not raped? Why another girl was not raped? That this girl is raped? It is because she's not a well-corrected woman. You know, she works outside. So let me mention that every woman working outside is not a well-corrected woman for majority of the population in Afghanistan. They believe that a woman going outside, working outside, gives the consent to be raped, gives the consent to be used. So this is really a very bad situation that every girl is facing in Afghanistan. Therefore, I got the determination that I need to speak out more than before. I need to work in a place where I can help these women. And I started working in one of the international NGOs, feminist international NGOs, in 2017. I don't want to mention the name because of the security reasons, but the international NGO was working with women, and they were helping women out in different ways, psychosocial support, to economical support, to development programs. So there were a lot of programs going on there, and I learned a lot about Afghanistan, but also about Afghan women there.
I know that it was difficult for you after Taliban took over to decide to leave. You wanted to stay and keep working with women. What made you decide I have to go?
My family lives in Pakistan. They tried to reach out to me to get me back to home a month ago, before Kabul falls. They every day was calling me to get me home, but I was not ready. Actually, I was very optimistic that the government, but also the NATO and foreign militaries would not let Kabul fall under control of the Taliban. This was every Afghan citizens' expectation from the government, from the Afghan government, but also from foreign governments. We were very optimistic about our future. I remember when I wanted to visit my family after a year, it was end of August that I booked my tickets, and I wanted to fly to Pakistan and meet my family. But 27 August was too late, you know. Taliban took over Kabul on 15th August. And that's when I realized that no more I'm hopeful to Afghanistan and its future. No more there are hopes, no more there are rights for women, because I don't believe on Taliban. I don't believe on the terrorist group. I still realize Taliban is a terrorist group, not as a formal government who leads Afghanistan. So everybody, including me, was fearing for their lives. They were picking, everybody who could were picking up to leave Afghanistan and to save their lives. Especially those who have worked with with foreign governments, indirectly or directly, or with international NGOs, because they were fearing if they would be killed or tortured because of working with the enemies of Taliban, as they were saying this before in 90s. So the people were afraid of their experience that they had with Taliban before. And as all the people, I was also afraid because I was a vulnerable woman living with my sister, but also a woman who have worked with international NGO. Therefore, I just, the moment that I received the news, it was an unimaginable moment. I was working on my laptop. I was working from home. It was Sunday morning, and I just received a message that Taliban came to the city, and a lot of I saw from the window outside that a lot of women, men are walking, running to their homes, and everybody is so devastated. Everybody saying Taliban, Taliban. And this was the moment that all my body just shook for a moment. I stopped breathing for a moment. I said, what's happening? How could they sell us in a very short time? No, this is a betrayal to people of Afghanistan. I was so devastated, and a lot of my colleagues from Europe, from other parts of the world were calling me, Kamila, are you okay? Try to be in a safe place until you find a way to get out of Afghanistan. And that's when I decided to leave Afghanistan.
And were you able to take anything with you? What was the process like of getting from your flat to the airport?
This is, I would say that I was living in a very dangerous place. My home was in neighboring of one of the government officials' home, and the second day that the first day they only came and saw everything, checked the streets, the homes, but the second day they came and took over the home of the government official, took their everything and made a checkpoint in front of our window. And it was very, very difficult for us to get out of the home, even if Taliban would not kill us. But the fear that we had in our head and the trauma that we were going through would not allow us to go out of the home. So I was very afraid. I remember at the night, I burned a lot of my documents in the kitchen. I burned a lot of my contact numbers. I wanted to burn my university degree and my work achievements, the certificates and everything. But I couldn't, I just couldn't because I worked so hard for all of them. So I kept them and I hid them somewhere. But I burned all the documents that could put me, my life, and my sister's life in risk. So I would say I don't know how difficultly I got a burqa for myself. I didn't have a burqa before, and I called one of my colleagues whose home was near me. I said, I need a burqa or something that could cover from head to toe. If you can bring me, or you can give it to someone else who could bring me. And she said, why you need that? I could not say that I want to go outside of Afghanistan. I am being evacuated because it was something that could put my life in risk. So I could not trust anybody, anybody. This is very surprising that at that time I could not trust the dearest people to me, So I got the burqa for me and my sister. We covered from head to toe, we covered our faces, and we only took our documents and my laptop under that burqa and took a taxi and went to the airport. I don't remember if I have taken even a dress for me, So I left everything I earned during 9-10 years in Afghanistan behind.
And then how did you finally get out? How long did it take in that crowd at the airport to finally get on a plane?
On 18th of August, I got a message that I'm being evacuated and I have to be near the airport. I was evacuated actually on 23rd August. So it means it was a travel for almost a week to get inside the airport, but also to get out of Afghanistan. It took me 72 hours to get inside the airport. 3 days and night I was outside of the airport with my other colleagues, with my friends and family, and we were there waiting for foreign militaries to come to us or escort us inside the airport because we had official emails and invitation from government, but also we were waiting for some kind of support. But unfortunately, the foreign militaries could not support us in that time, and we needed to make it ourselves. So it was very difficult. It was very, very devastating, I would say. All the people around the world witnessed how Afghan people were playing on their lives to get out of Afghanistan. I saw a video where an Afghan boy was checking from the tire of the plane and wanted to go to US or to be out of Afghanistan, but he lost his life. It was shared on social media and millions of people reacted on that, thousands of people, and a lot of people laughed at that video. But it was not funny. This was the situation. People were trying to kill themselves but to not be under rule of Taliban. This is how scary Taliban is for people of Afghanistan, because only we have experienced how is life under control of Taliban. So I would say that it was a very scary moments of my life that I faced, and I faced a lot of violence inside the airport, but not inside the airport, but around the airport doors. We tried every possible door. We were going from one door to another to get into it, but we were not allowed to, and the crowd would not allow us to move even a step forward. So I would say a lot of women, a lot of children, a lot of elderly people lost their lives. People were shooted. Taliban was shooting on the people. They were beating. They were not thinking that whether this is a woman, this is a girl, a child, or elderly people. They were just beating, firing, and they would not care for anything. So I don't know how we got into the airport. Now that I remember, it was just a very, very scary moment that I never want to remember again. But I also realized that I don't want to forget that moment, because that was a moment that turned my life to a totally different thing. Now I'm safe in Europe. Now I'm in safe hands. But I would say that this is not the end. There are a lot coming to my way in the coming weeks or months or years. So a lot has to be changed, and I need to deal with a lot of more challenges.
The Taliban has no women in their government. They started up schools for boys, but not girls this weekend. From what you know of them, what's your concern about Taliban being in charge?
I'm very concerned about women and girls in Afghanistan for different reasons. Firstly, because women would be imprisoned in homes. They would not have a life, they would not have identity, they would not have anything to do but to be imprisoned in homes. They would not be treated as a normal human being. All the women who are young, I'm afraid, would be forced to forced marriages, child marriages. And also, I'm afraid that women would lose their achievements that they gained in the last 20 years. But also, women of Afghanistan are more than half the population of Afghanistan. If half of the population of Afghanistan is dismissed, if half of the population are no more functioning, I don't know how would Afghanistan function. With half of your body you cannot function. So I would say, with this all happening in Afghanistan currently, preventing girls from going to school, removing Ministry of Women's Affairs from the structure, and actually making another ministry to to provide more barriers for women would be even more difficult for women. You know,
I think they call it Ministry of Virtue and Morality.
Yeah, I mean, prevention of, I think it is propagation of virtue and prevention of vice, something like that. So I would say a lot of restrictions are yet to come for women.
Well, what can people who are listening do? What would you like people, what action can we take to prevent a whole group of women from being subjugated?
I'm I would say at this point I'm very disappointed because it's a month that passed from Kabul's fall, from Afghanistan's fall, and now a month has passed that people are living under control of Taliban. In few days, I was hearing a lot about Afghanistan. Now that I'm in Europe, I hear less about Afghanistan. I see less people talking about Afghanistan. I encourage and call upon all people around the world, especially women and girls who are influencers, who can make change. I would say everybody is a tool or is a I would say someone who can make change, so they can try and speak out about Afghanistan, speak about Afghan women, about their problems, about how can they influence those problems. You know, we sometimes say our voice does not matter, our word does not matter, we cannot make a change. But if the whole world wants, I'm sure that it can change. So I would encourage everybody to not only see on news and feel pity, but also speak up on that, because your voice matters and everybody is listening to you. So try to make the world realize that Afghan women are facing a very unique and difficult situation. They are, and their lives are under danger, and they are facing the death every day, but they are not dying, you know. So make a change and try to speak out about that.
Afghan has depended on foreign aid because so many people are poor. So I'm wondering if the aid agencies and foreign governments can say, we will give you money for food and development only if girls are in school and there's a ministry of, that seems to me the way to influence them. Money.
Because Afghanistan is one of the countries, one of the most vulnerable and the most poor country in the world. Now that Afghanistan is under control of one of the most dangerous groups in the world, I would say, I would use this as a tool to influence this group, because they need the foreign aid. The Taliban needs foreign aid to run their government. Now there's no economy functioning in Afghanistan, you know. Women are not working, but also men are also afraid about their lives. So there is no guarantee that they will not harm anyone, you know. There is no guarantee in Taliban's work. They are not accountable to people of Afghanistan. But the world can make them accountable because of their own needs, but because what Afghanistan needs in terms of economic support, you know, in terms of human aid support. So I am also warning that if the large amount of money is being sent to Afghan government, to current government of Afghanistan, and those money are not used in a way that is beneficial for people of Afghanistan, would be more harmful. You know, Afghan people need immediate help. You know, immediate help, when I'm saying, is mostly for vulnerable people. Make sure those vulnerable people are reached out. Their problems are addressed. Their voices are listened. You know, because if women are not allowed to work, girls are not allowed to go to school, I would say this kind of aid can give more chances to the government to restrict them. So we need to be very, very realistic and idealistic in terms of providing money to Afghanistan and how to channelize those money. And I would again ask the world to influence Taliban to not resolve the Ministry of Foreign and the Ministry of Women Affairs, because it represents the women of Afghanistan. So I would encourage the EU, US, and all the people who can make change to actually influence Taliban to make the Ministry of Women's Affairs function, but also call the girls to come to schools and continue their education as they were doing before.
Thank you.